I was kidnapped. The kidnappers tried calling my parents, who were traveling abroad, to demand ransom money, but no matter what they did, they couldn't get through. The kidnappers and I could only stare at each other awkwardly, and the atmosphere grew increasingly tense. To avoid getting killed, I proactively suggested calling my fiancé, whom I had never met. And just like that, Ethan Walker, who was conducting training at the criminal police department, received a ransom call from my kidnappers. Seriously, am I even my parents' real daughter? Boss, don't be mad, maybe we'll get through to them in a bit? I picked up my phone and unwillingly tried calling my mother again. Sorry, the number you have dialed is currently out of service. Please try again later. Hearing the automated message and the beeping tone, I felt like my whole world was collapsing. 3 days ago, I had just returned to the country. My parents said that now that I had graduated from university, I needed to learn to be independent, so they let me come back alone to build my life. While at it, they told me to look for my fiancé, someone I was betrothed to as a child, to settle my marital future. Then they handed me a phone number for this man I had never met and happily went on a trip to the Maldives. Who would have thought I'd get kidnapped on the second day of being back? The kidnappers forced me to call my family to demand ransom, but none of my parents' numbers worked. At that moment, one thought circled in my mind: if no one comes to ransom me, am I going to die here? The more I thought about it, the more scared and panicked I became. The kidnappers and I continued staring at each other in embarrassment. Then, a spark lit up in my brain. I remembered the phone number my parents gave me. Like a drowning person grasping at a piece of driftwood, I suddenly felt a sliver of hope. Boss, how about I try calling my fiancé? He's in the country, so he should be able to answer. Why didn't you say so earlier? So I made the call. This time, there was no out-of-service message. My heart pounded as I waited for the connection. Meanwhile, in the city's criminal police department, Ethan Walker was guiding his team through a training session when his phone suddenly rang. After 2 rings, a deep, calm male voice answered, "Hello? Who is this?" I was more relieved than the kidnappers. Someone finally picked up. I quickly turned on speaker mode and handed the phone to the kidnapper. He seemed like it was his first time doing this, a bit nervous and stuttering. "Listen, your fiancé is in our hands. At 2 p.m. today, prepare 500,000 and bring it to the second bridge on the north side of the city. Otherwise, don't expect to see her again." There was a moment of silence on the other end, followed by loud laughter. "Is someone next to you?" "No, I'm watching TV," the calm voice replied, still composed as he began negotiating. "How do I know she's still safe?" The kidnapper looked at me. I immediately cooperated by yelling, "Help me! Do you hear her? Don't call the police. Don't play games. I want to see the money this afternoon." "Alright, I'll try to gather the money. But first, you need to send me a photo so I know she's safe." Hearing that, the kidnapper hung up immediately. He took my phone, snapped a photo of me tied to a chair, and sent it. Then he stuffed the phone into his pocket. Still looking uneasy, he turned to ask me, "Is that fiancé of yours reliable? Will he really give up 500,000 for you?" Honestly, I wasn't sure either. I could only force a smile and reply, "Probably." But shortly after, the sound of police sirens echoed outside. Before the kidnapper could react, he was already subdued and handcuffed by the police. As for me, my eyes were fixed on the handsome officer walking toward me with a bright smile. He was seriously good-looking. If my fiancé looked like that, life would be perfect. In the interrogation room at the police station, "Tell us, why did you kidnap her?" "Because she's dumb, because she's really dumb." "That's your reason? Be honest." "I'm telling the truth. I kidnapped her because she's too dumb." "That's not a reason. Explain yourself." That day, I was on the bus and saw her get on. She asked the driver if she could swipe her card. He said yes. So she kept trying to swipe a card that wouldn't work. And? What does that have to do with kidnapping? The driver took her card to check, and it turned out to be a credit card. Go on. I used to work as a credit card consultant, so I could tell at a glance that that card had a minimum limit of 1 million. I immediately thought she might be some rich heiress trying to experience life outside her bubble. So, I paid her bus fare and struck up a conversation. She told me she had just returned to the country, had no job, and no place to stay. Sensing an opportunity, I followed her for 2 days and found out she truly didn't know anyone here and was staying at a hotel alone. So, I made my move. At the police station's rest area, I was devouring the lunchbox that the female officer brought me. Eat slowly. Once you're done, you still have to make an official statement, the officer said sympathetically while watching me. But I didn't care, I was curious instead. How did you guys find my location so quickly? She chuckled. We should thank your kidnapper. He used your iPhone to send that photo, and iPhones have location data embedded in their pictures. Once we pinpointed the area, we realized that only that abandoned building could be used to hide someone. So we went straight there. I wanted to ask about my fiancé. After all, he indirectly saved my life. But since arriving at the station, I hadn't seen him at all. While I was still wondering, the handsome officer who had untied me walked out from the interrogation room. He waved at me. Finished eating? Come with me and let's file your statement. I obediently stood up. Yes. He brought out pen and paper and even thoughtfully poured me a cup of hot water. Your name is Vanessa Brooks. I've reviewed your situation. Do you have any other relatives in the country? No, only a fiancé, I answered honestly. Can we contact him right now? I paused for a moment. Hadn't I already called him and he was the one who reported the kidnapping? Haven't you met him yet? The handsome officer in front of me suddenly had a strange expression on his face that I couldn't read. What's your fiancé's name? I don't know. Seeing his increasingly complicated expression, I quickly explained, it's an arranged engagement from childhood. I studied abroad and have never met him. But I know his father's name, John Walker. He coughed up. The handsome officer in front of me seemed to choke on his own spit. I quickly slid my untouched cup of water toward him. He took a sip and hurriedly left the room, saying he needed to make a phone call. About 10 minutes later, he came back with a complicated look in his eyes. You're Ms. Brooks's daughter. So, you're my future husband? I sat in the passenger seat next to Ethan Walker, overjoyed like a little bunny. Who would have thought that the fiancé I'd never met would turn out to be such a tall, handsome guy? It would be strange if I didn't feel like jumping for joy. Ethan Walker was driving, not even sparing me a glance, but his face showed a mixture of emotions. His home was on the top floor and had a large balcony. I absolutely loved it. As soon as I entered, I climbed onto the hanging chair on the balcony and swayed with satisfaction. You can stay here for now. I've already prepared a room for you. I'm busy with work, so if you need anything, just call me. So, we're living together now? I asked. I clearly saw his face turn red, and even his ears began to flush. What's wrong? Isn't this living together? It's not. It's cohabiting. Oh, but since we're engaged from childhood, and we'll get married sooner or later, living together isn't a big deal, right? I mumbled, secretly pleased with the fiancé my parents had picked for me. Engagements are old-fashioned. People don't really follow those anymore. I pulled my legs back and looked him straight in the eye, serious this time. So do you dislike me? No. Do you already have a girlfriend? Also no. Then why won't you accept our engagement? As soon as I entered, I climbed onto the hanging chair on the balcony and swayed with satisfaction. You can stay here for now. I've already prepared a room for you. I'm busy with work, so if you need anything, just call me. So, we're living together now? I asked. I clearly saw his face turn red, and even his ears began to flush. What's wrong? Isn't this living together? It's not. It's cohabiting. Oh, but since we're engaged from childhood, and we'll get married sooner or later, living together isn't a big deal, right? I mumbled, secretly pleased with the fiancé my parents had picked for me. Engagements are old-fashioned. People don't really follow those anymore. I pulled my legs back and looked him straight in the eye, serious this time. So do you dislike me? No. Do you already have a girlfriend? Also no. Then why won't you accept our engagement? The next morning, I woke up early to get ready. Ethan Walker had just come back from his morning run and even made breakfast for me. I took a big bite of the fragrant sandwich, completely satisfied. Wow, Ethan's sandwich is so good, I said with my cheeks puffed, chewing and showering him with praise. Ethan Walker's face turned a little red. You're heading out? Yes, I found a job. I have an interview today. All right. Be careful on the road. Seeing me eat in a rush, he poured a glass of milk and set it in front of me. I gratefully drank it in one go, then looked up and gave him a bright smile. His face turned even redder. He set the cup down, trying to sound calm. There's a sting operation at the precinct today. I might be home late. Don't wait for dinner. Okay. Take care. I'll miss you at home. Watching him leave with a slightly flustered look, I pouted. Men, they say they don't care, but his face turned red all the way to his ears. After fixing my clothes again, I also left the house for the interview. Using the location sent by the recruiter, I arrived at an old apartment complex and called the contact person. Less than a minute later, a middle-aged man with a heavy regional accent appeared from a corner. He led me into one of the apartments. As soon as the door opened, the strong smell of cigarettes mixed with something unpleasant hit me, making me frown slightly. Today's your first day. Just get familiar with the job. Daniel will guide you. I looked toward where he pointed. There was a skinny, sallow-faced young man. I walked over and sat down at a nearby desk. Daniel handed me a phone. To put it simply, our job is online sales. You just need to message customers and persuade them to buy products. There's a script in this file. Just follow that. All the pictures and videos you need are in the phone's gallery. With that, he went back to his own business. I picked up the document and started studying the sales pitches and sample replies. Just as I was trying to digest the dense script, the phone buzzed, a message. It was from a guy. His profile picture was a selfie. Who's this? I quickly flipped through the script and replied, sorry, I must have added the wrong contact. Then delete me. A bit flustered, I scanned the next part of the script and typed, since fate brought us together, why not be friends? Sure. I let out a sigh of relief and continued following the script. What do you do for a living? I raise geese. Want to buy one? I work in admin at my dad's company. Sounds like a big company. How about ordering a few geese for the staff meals? I'll give you a discount. I stuck to the script. Actually, I don't like my job that much. I love photography, but my parents say I'm not being realistic. We argue a lot. I don't even feel like eating anymore. Then buy a goose from me. Eating it will cheer you up. I'll give you a discount. I know my parents just want what's best for me, but they never really understand what I want. So, want to buy a goose? Discount. I was raised by my grandparents. I rarely talk to my parents. Can you teach me how to communicate with them? Sure. But first, buy a goose for them. It'll help. Discount. I want to go back to the countryside to help my grandparents harvest tea. They work so hard. Do you like tea? I like geese. If you're going back, buy one for them. Discount. At this point, I started to feel a little lost. Why was this guy so obsessed with selling geese? I was just about to ask Daniel how to handle this situation when, bang! The door was kicked open. A squad of police officers stormed in. And just like that, I found myself in the same familiar interrogation room. I sat inside, across from Ethan Walker again, with a cup of water he had poured for me. Speak, he said. At that moment, all I wanted to do was find a hole to crawl into, or better yet, dig a tunnel to another planet. It was so embarrassing. I had just returned to the country and had absolutely no clue about these tea-selling girl scams. It wasn't until I was taken to the police station and lectured by the same female officer from before, for a whole hour, that I finally understood. So this was one of those online scam schemes. Ethan Walker sat across from me, a knowing smirk tugging at the corner of his lips as he watched my scrunched-up face. "So, do you realize your mistake now?" "Yes, sir." I nodded seriously. "I now deeply understand the error of my ways. I will absolutely never trust shady information on the internet again. From now on, I'll live a proper, decent life." "You're not gonna throw me in jail, right?" Ethan Walker couldn't hold back a laugh at my righteously sincere declaration. "No jail time for you. You didn't know what you were getting into and didn't cause any financial damage, so it's not a crime." Just as I finally relaxed a little, I tensed right back up. I've only been back in the country for 2 days and I've already ended up at the police station twice. My legal awareness was seriously lacking. I clearly needed a thorough re-education. So, on the way home, I was subjected to a full-on legal lecture by Ethan Walker. It was like being an elementary school student getting scolded for forgetting to do homework. As soon as we got back, I bolted into my room and locked the door. In just one afternoon, I had experienced 2 consecutive public embarrassments. It might take me the rest of my life to recover. The next morning, I still hadn't recovered from the trauma of the day before. Half asleep, I was woken up by Ethan Walker calling me to breakfast. "So, what's your plan now?" Only after sipping a spoonful of soup did my brain begin to function again. I casually replied, "Keep looking for a job, of course." Ethan Walker peeled a boiled egg and placed it on my plate. Looking at that shiny egg, my brain suddenly felt just as smooth and empty, totally blank. "What kind of job do you want?" he asked patiently. I gave it some serious thought. After a while, my eyes lit up. "I know how to shoot." "Are there any jobs that involve shooting?" Ethan Walker was silent for a few seconds, then said, "Guns are banned for civilian use here, but there are some jobs related to shooting." "What's your skill level?" "Pretty decent, I guess." The truth was, I didn't really know. I hadn't practiced in years. "How about I take you today to see for yourself? Let's test your level a bit." "Really? You're not working today?" "I'm off today." "Yay." I followed Ethan Walker to the biggest sports shooting center in the city, giddy like a little bird, and headed straight for the 10-meter air rifle section. Ethan Walker followed closely behind and stood beside me. Suddenly, I had a fun idea. "Let's have a match." He raised an eyebrow in surprise. "Are you sure?" "Absolutely. Whoever loses has to agree to one condition set by the winner." "Deal?" Seeing how enthusiastic I was, he smiled and nodded. "All right then. You shoot first." I picked up the gun, and the playful look on my face vanished instantly, replaced by laser focus. I aimed, controlled my breathing, and pulled the trigger with a steady hand. Ethan Walker looked a little surprised. When I put the gun down, he was still staring at me, frozen. I waved my hand in front of his face. "What's wrong? Did my beauty stun you speechless?" He cleared his throat, turned his face away slightly, looking a bit flustered. "It's nothing." My turn. He quickly raised the gun, aimed, and fired with the same sharp precision. The scores popped up on the screen. I scored 6.9, and he got 6.7. Just then, a staff member walked by and, clearly recognizing Ethan Walker, teased, "Oh, Ethan brought his girlfriend to play, huh? No wonder your aim's off today, your heart's not on the target. But hey, your girlfriend's pretty good too." Hearing the words girlfriend, my heart bloomed like spring flowers. I turned and flashed a smug grin at Ethan Walker. "Haha, you lost." Ethan Walker looked genuinely surprised that he had lost, but he kept his promise. "What do you want me to do?" I thought for a bit, then smiled mischievously. I want you to be my boyfriend, for one day. As soon as I said it, Ethan Walker's face turned bright red. He was just about to say something when suddenly, a familiar female voice rang out from behind us. Oh? Isn't that Ethan Walker? Long time no see. Are you here to practice shooting too? Is this your girlfriend? She's gorgeous. Hearing that familiar voice, Ethan Walker turned his head. Coach Sophia. Then he turned to introduce us. This is the coach of the provincial shooting team. Just call her Coach Sophia. I obediently greeted her. Hello, Coach Sophia. She smiled brightly. Hi, Ethan. So this is your girlfriend? She's gorgeous. Ethan Walker was just about to explain, but I shot him a warning glance. He swallowed his words and only let out a non-committal but the tips of his ears were clearly red. Sophia raised her brows and teased, TCH, this kid's already over 20 and still so shy, no future at all. She turned to me. Alright, young lady, I saw your shot earlier, pretty good. Give me a few more, let me take a better look. With that, she pulled Ethan Walker to the side, pushing him away from the shooting spot. He gestured toward the stands and then went to sit down, watching me from afar. With him watching me so intently, something stirred inside me, a surge of motivation to redeem myself after that whole scam debacle. So for the next few rounds, I focused even more, taking each shot seriously. Good, very good, Sophia praised. You're clearly talented. You've trained before, haven't you? You could say that, I replied modestly. After the session, we grabbed some water and sat down beside Ethan Walker. Sophia looked at me for a moment, then suddenly frowned. Ethan, why does your girlfriend look so familiar? Have you introduced her to me before? No, he answered. Then where did I see her? Ah. I remember now. The national championship in the US, you were the champion 2 years ago, weren't you? Ethan Walker turned to look at me in surprise. I smiled sheepishly and nodded to confirm. Sophia clapped her thigh with a loud slap and grinned like she'd just won the lottery. Ethan, you brought me a treasure this time. The national championship is coming up and our team's short on people. Can I ask your girlfriend to be a temporary coach for us? I really need a talent like her. Ethan Walker turned to me, and I looked back at him with sparkling eyes. And just like that, I landed a job as a temporary shooting coach. Time flew by. In the blink of an eye, a month had passed. I was kept busy with coaching, and Ethan Walker seemed even busier than me. He often came home around midnight, and we barely saw each other, maybe a handful of times all month. Today was the finals. My students performed really well. The coaching team decided to go out and celebrate, but I found myself feeling a bit down. I hadn't seen Ethan Walker in days. Noticing my mood, Sophia leaned over and asked, "What's wrong? Having a lover spat with Ethan?" "No, he's just been so busy lately." She sighed, then gently reassured me, "That's just how his job is. You'll have to get used to it. That boy's shy, and not the proactive type. So when he does have free time, you better seize the moment and strike." Her words hit me like a cold splash of water. Only one thing echoed in my head, seize the moment. Make the first move. I groggily made my way home. Just as I opened the door, I ran right into Ethan Walker. He had just gotten back from work and was stepping out of the bathroom, freshly showered. Maybe it was the alcohol. Maybe it was Sophia's words still echoing in my head. Either way, I walked straight up to him, one hand braced on the bathroom door, the other pulling a pistol-shaped object from my bag. I pointed it at his forehead, mimicking the tone of those kidnappers we once ran into, and said coldly, "Ethan Walker, your life is now in my hands. If you don't agree to be my boyfriend, I'll shoot you on the spot." Startled by my sudden move, Ethan Walker looked flustered. He glanced at the gun in my hand, a mix of helplessness and amusement in his eyes. "Then shoot me." That set me off. "You'd rather die than be with me?" I pulled the trigger without hesitation. Click. A tiny flame popped out from the barrel. Yep. It was a gun-shaped lighter. Ethan Walker let out a sigh, both exasperated and amused. He snatched the lighter from me and scooped me up into his arms, carrying me over to the bed. But I wasn't done yet. Suddenly, I yanked off the towel wrapped around his waist. He froze like a statue. Both hands flew to grab the ends of the towel, his face flushed bright red as he glared at me. "Come on now, let go. I'll go make you some hangover soup." I pouted, grinning mischievously. Not letting go. Unless what? What do you want now? Come closer, I'll whisper it to you. Still gripping the towel, I left him no choice but to lean down. Closer. Just a little closer. His ear was now practically against my lips. Clearly defeated, Ethan Walker muttered, "That's close enough. Say it." I chuckled slyly. In a flash, I wrapped my arms around his neck and flipped us both. Caught off guard, Ethan Walker fell back onto the bed with me on top. I leaned into his ear and whispered, "Unless you stay here with me tonight." Then I buried my face into his firm chest and, just like that, fell sweetly asleep. The next day, it wasn't until noon that I finally stirred awake. I groggily sat up, head pounding like a drum. Instinctively, I reached for my phone on the nightstand. Only to grab a toy gun instead. I stared at the thing in my hand, brain blanking out for a good few seconds. Why the heck is this here? Turning my head, I spotted not only my phone but also a cup of warm honey water. And then, boom. The memories of the previous night came flooding back. Especially that part where I snatched Ethan Walker's towel. Oh God. Mortified, I dove under the covers, face buried in the pillow. I'm so dead. So embarrassing. I can never show my face again. It took me over half an hour of pep talk just to muster enough courage to step out of the room. I was fully prepared to confess everything and apologize for my drunken harassment. But when I glanced around the living room, Ethan Walker wasn't home. I breathed a huge sigh of relief and rushed to wash up, though my brain was still a tangled mess of nerves and shame. Feeling too restless, I decided to go out for a walk. Just as I got downstairs, a baby and maternity store caught my eye. A wild thought popped into my head. Without hesitation, I walked straight inside. When Ethan Walker came home later, he found me in the living room, surrounded by baby supplies, clumsily trying to figure out how everything worked. He looked completely stunned. "Are we expecting a baby or something?" "No," I mumbled, avoiding his gaze. "Then why'd you buy all this?" "I'll use it myself." He was even more confused. "You're totally fine, why would you need stuff for pregnant women and babies?" I took a deep breath. Gathering every ounce of courage, I said, I'm pregnant. Shouldn't I be preparing in advance?" Upon hearing my words, Ethan Walker looked like he'd just been struck by lightning out of a clear blue sky. His mouth dropped open as he stared at me, completely frozen. Seeing his reaction, I suddenly felt wronged. All the bottled-up frustration inside me surged to the surface. I snapped irritably, "I'm carrying your baby, and that's the face you make? You don't want to take responsibility?" The shock on Ethan Walker's face turned into confusion. "When exactly did you get pregnant with my child?" I puffed up my cheeks angrily. "Last night, obviously. We slept together, didn't we? If it's not yours, whose could it be?" I stared at him as he burst into uncontrollable laughter, tears forming in his eyes. Was he so happy he'd gone mad? What's so funny? Ethan Walker tried to stifle his laughter and looked at me with an expression that was hard to describe. "You're not pregnant. Just sleeping in the same bed doesn't get you pregnant, you know." I blinked, a bit dazed. But my parents always said that growing up. Even in the dramas, it happens that way. Well, yeah, people do get pregnant from sleeping together, but not literally sleeping. You'll understand once you're married. He ruffled my hair like I was a confused kid. Anyway, you're not pregnant. So stop messing around with those baby things, okay? Oh. I nodded dumbly, but still muttered to myself, But if we slept in the same bed, does that mean we already? Before I could finish my question, Ethan Walker's phone rang. He answered it quickly, exchanged a few words, then hurried to change clothes. I have to go. Be good. And with that, he dashed out the door. I sat there, staring at the closed door, then at the pile of baby items on the floor, and whispered softly, so does that mean we're already together? Half a month passed. During that time, Ethan Walker barely came home. Alone and bored, I heard rumors about a moon elder shrine in the neighboring city that was said to be extremely spiritual and effective for love blessings. I decided I had to go, for me and Ethan Walker. Though it wasn't a holiday, the shrine was still packed. People bustled in and out non-stop. In the middle of the courtyard stood a century-old peach blossom tree, its branches in full bloom. Red prayer ribbons danced in the breeze, casting a warm, romantic aura all around. I thought to myself, with so many people praying for love here, it must really work. I entered the shrine reverently, followed every ritual, and even drew a fortune stick. The woman interpreting the fortune was middle-aged and kind-looking. She smiled after glancing at my stick. This is a most auspicious fortune. My eyes lit up. I held my breath, waiting to hear more. According to this stick, she said, you and the person you love are fated by the heavens. He loves you too. You two are destined to be together. I was overjoyed. Immediately, I pulled out a thick red envelope and handed it to her in thanks. She smiled even brighter, held my hand, and praised me, with such sincerity, I'll gift you a pair of peace lock charms. If both you and the one you love wear them, they'll bring not only safety but everlasting love. Excited, I took the charms with sparkling eyes, offered another heartfelt prayer, and finally stepped outside. As soon as I reached the courtyard, I suddenly froze. Under the peach tree, two people stood talking, and they caught my eye instantly. It was Ethan Walker. Why was he here? He was holding hands with a woman, walking and chatting as they smiled together. Thinking my eyes were playing tricks, I moved closer. Nope. It was definitely him. But who was she? A storm of questions swirled in my head. I quietly followed behind them and watched with my own eyes as Ethan Walker led her into the shrine. About 10 minutes later, they came out together. The woman held a fortune stick and was talking to him, laughing. Ethan Walker smiled gently, naturally took the water bottle from her hands, opened the cap, and handed it back to her. She took a sip, then passed the bottle back to him, gesturing for him to drink too. I stood there, frozen, witnessing the entire scene unfold. Inside, it felt like 1,000 ants crawling across my chest, numb and unbearably itchy. They looked just like a couple in love. And I was just an outsider, utterly misplaced in this love-soaked atmosphere. Suddenly, right after taking the water bottle from that woman, Ethan Walker turned and looked in my direction. Startled, I panicked and turned the other way, not knowing why I was so afraid. Maybe I was scared of looking like a pitiful fool. Like a ghost, I wandered out of the Moon Elder Shrine, drifting along with the bustling crowd, not even knowing where I was heading. I looked down. The pair of peace lock charms still wrapped around my wrist. The same charms I had carried so carefully the entire way. Suddenly, they felt like a joke. I tore them off and tied them to a withered tree tucked away in a corner. How ironic. Someone came to the shrine to pray for love, only to witness the person she loved bringing another woman there, to pray for love. Was there anyone in the world more pathetic than me? The more I thought about it, the more hurt I felt, and the more I thought, the more wronged I became. I sank down beside the dry tree, hugged my knees, buried my face in my arms, and cried. Cried for a long, long time. Everything was just a lie. I don't remember how I got back. It felt like my soul had drifted somewhere far away. I pushed open the door to Ethan Walker's apartment. The living room still held the pile of baby items I had bought a few days ago. He hadn't come home. Maybe my presence made him uncomfortable. Maybe that's why he had been staying away for so long. Like a lifeless shell, I began quietly packing everything. But my tears just kept falling. I stayed in that house for a full week. Like I had been forgotten entirely by its real owner. During that time, I thought about so many things. Every little moment between me and Ethan Walker. From the very beginning, he had never once said he liked me. It had always been one-sided. Maybe he had only taken me in out of obligation, because of the childhood promise between our families. Maybe, to spare my pride, he chose to slowly distance himself. So I could figure it out on my own. I just happened to realize it a bit sooner than he expected. After packing, I looked around. I had arrived with just a small suitcase. Now I had 3 big boxes. A cartoon-shaped pillow on the balcony chair. The couple nameplate I stuck on our bedroom door. The pink tablecloth on the dining table. The pair of matching mugs I bought, blue and pink, resting on the shelf. This apartment looked almost the same as when I arrived, and yet, it had changed so much. I paused at the doorway. Then finally, I left a note for Ethan Walker. Dear Ethan Walker, thank you for everything over the past few months. From the day you saved me from those kidnappers, to helping me find a job, to making breakfast. Big or small, I remember it all. I really liked you. But if we can't end up together, you'll still always be my hero. You were right. That childhood engagement, it's outdated. For 2 people to be together, mutual love is what matters most. I respect your decision. And I hope you'll find happiness. I've stayed in your home long enough. It's time I left. Take care. Don't miss me. I left the note behind and took a taxi to the airport. I had already booked a flight to England. I needed a place to start over. The flight was delayed by 15 minutes. I stared out the window, looking at this city. So familiar, yet now so distant. Just as I turned to board the plane. Vanessa. I froze. Did I hear that right? Vanessa. I turned around. And there he was. The person I had missed day and night. He was running fast. So fast it was almost clumsy. Only when he got closer did I notice the large bruise under his eye. He threw his arms around me and held me tight. I was so shocked I didn't even know how to react. He looked at me, eyes red, his fingers gently brushing my cheek. Wet. I hadn't even realized I was crying. Silly girl. Ethan Walker brought out the last dish and sat down in front of me. Why did you leave? What did you mean by everything in that letter? At the Moon Elder Shrine. I saw it all. He looked at me, as if torn between anger and helplessness. Then why didn't you wait for me to come back and just ask? Was there even a point in asking? I replied, voice trembling. My nose stung again. What was I supposed to do? Wait for him to confess that he liked someone else? Just to hurt myself even more? Don't you want to hear my explanation? I shook my head. You don't owe me any explanations. He let out a long, defeated sigh. She's my colleague. She already has a 2-year-old child. I stared at Ethan Walker in disbelief. I hadn't expected that. Judging by the look on my face, he squeezed my cheek, a little annoyed. What are you imagining now? That day, we were on an undercover mission. He pulled out his phone, opened a local news article, and handed it to me. City police dismantled a large drug trafficking ring, arresting several key members near the Moon Elder Shrine. So that day, they were pretending. Ethan Walker gave a tired nod. I stood frozen, not knowing how to react. I was angry, but I wasn't even sure if I was mad at him or mad at myself. At that moment, his phone rang. Here. Look at this. I looked up. In his hand were the peace lock charms I had thrown away. The butterfly knot I had tied myself was still on the string. He gently took my wrist and carefully put it back on. Then, he raised his own wrist to show me. An identical charm was on his too. In the room covered with bright red double happiness characters, I curled under the blanket, only my little head peeking out. Ethan Walker stepped out of the bathroom. I stared wide-eyed at him, not blinking. He chuckled. "What are you looking at me like that for?" "Darling," I muttered. "You lied to me." He paused, caught off guard. "Lied about what?" "You said after we got married, I'd finally understand how sleeping in the same bed leads to having a baby. Well, we're married now. And I still don't know anything." Ethan Walker burst out laughing. He flipped the switch, climbed onto the bed, and turned off the lights. "You'll find out. Right now."